For the record, I've really been enjoying my M1 Max MacBook Pro. It's been helping me get so much done for my job of making YouTube videos. You can call it a job, really. It's kind of a joke. But, of course, I'm constantly wondering when I'm going to start regretting this purchase decision, and thanks to a report from the Taiwanese Commercial Times, it sounds like I'll know when I'm gonna start wanting to buy another Mac again. Let's begin. This is a fairly common question that's come up a lot, so it's interesting to finally get some reports and at least some rumors talking about what's going on, but obviously we've been fairly wowed with the M1 series of chips, right? We got the M1 last year and it blew everyone away. Now the M1 Pro, M1 Max are pretty insane as well. So when is Apple stepping this up again, right? When are we jumping to the M2 chip? According to this report, we're not supposed to expect the M2 MacBook Air or a new entry-level MacBook Pro until the second half of 2022. That kind of goes against a lot of what people were suggesting of maybe the new MacBook Air coming out in the spring. And frankly, whenever people are saying the second half of something, that usually doesn't imply summertime. So I think that means we might not get a refreshed MacBook Air until like the October or November time frame of next year, which is a long ways to go, I know, but it does give us a little insight of when to expect the M2 Pro and M2 Max, because it's fairly unlikely that they would launch all of these things at the same time. Basically, according to this report, Apple wants to refresh the Mac Apple Silicon chips every 18 months. So this is closer in line to how often Apple would refresh the iPad Pro CPUs, which for the most part were every year and a half. You know, occasionally you have your March 2020 iPad Pros followed by your April of 2021 iPad Pros. So that was a little bit different from what Apple normally does. But overall, it's safe to assume there's not going to be brand new MacBook Pros that come out at the same time every single year, just with beefed up chips. It'll probably ping pong back and forth between a spring launch one year and then a fall launch the following year. So in that case, we probably shouldn't get any new 14-inch or 16-inch MacBook Pros throughout all of 2022, unless of course they do like a 14-inch entry-level model with the M2 chip or something like that. But your Apple sheep's happy about it because that means I'm gonna have the latest MacBook Pro until likely the spring of 2023. Then when that rolls around, I'll start to feel some regret and I'll feel like, okay, I don't have the fastest silicon anymore. Crap. But what should also be interesting is to find out how much faster Apple actually plans on getting. According to this report, they're trying to make the jump to the 4nm architecture for the M2 series of chips, so certainly expect performance gains overall with the M2 Pro and M2 Max, but I'm going to anticipate it's not going to be as monumental of a leap as, you know, switching from Intel to Apple Silicon. That, like, allowed for so much great battery life, so much better performance, and it allowed for my fans to basically never kick on, even when I'm doing power intensive things. Whereas the jump from M1 Pro to M2 Pro, it will be noticeable, it'll be appreciated, but maybe not as crazy different as many people are hoping. But I'm just wondering what else Apple can do with these MacBook Pros. It feels like they went all out with them, and aside from like, okay, the silicon is now faster, maybe the battery life is a little bit better, like what else can you get people excited for? Maybe they finally give it HDMI 2.1, which it definitely deserved, or improve the transfer speed of the SD card slot, and I don't know, maybe improve the display specs a little bit. Face ID would be great if they find a way to miniaturize all that tech and embed it into the display panel. They'll have to kind of go directly back on their word though, when in an interview, Apple executives said that Touch ID makes more sense on a laptop because your fingers are already at the keyboard. Lies, just put Face ID on there, who cares? Overall, I think I can confidently say, even with all the changes that you could potentially have in a future generation MacBook Pro, maybe they make it thinner, lighter a little bit, mine's kind of heavy, I still think I'd be comfortable holding on to mine for quite some time, even when it's no longer the latest generation MacBook. But who knows? I could be in a completely different stage of life by 2023 and making all kinds of irresponsible decisions. So now you guys should know what to expect as to when new MacBook Pros are going to drop. Probably don't expect a 16-inch MacBook Pro in 2022, but you should get an M2 MacBook Air near the end of next year, and then you won't get another one until like the spring of 2024. But I think either we'll all have jetpacks by then or we'll all be dead. Only those two scenarios are possible. So feel free to let me know what you think of Apple refreshing every 18 months. Do you think that's too soon? I personally think it's okay if you want to take every 24 months, but probably some of you want an upgrade every 12 months. So feel free to let me know all of those dumb ideas down below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.